The coffee cup shattered against the floor. Not thrown, just slipped from trembling fingers, and every head in Romano's cafe turned to stare. Not at the mess, at her. At the wheelchair. At the empty chair across from her where he'd been sitting 30 seconds ago, before he saw what she was, and walked out without a word. Sarah Mitchell pressed her palms flat against the table nails, digging into wood, fighting the urge to scream, or cry, or disappear. Then a baby started crying near the doorway, and a man's desperate voice cut through her humiliation. "Please, buddy, not now." But what happened next changed everything. Drop a comment with your city below. I want to see how far Sarah's story travels across America. Sarah Mitchell's hands wouldn't stop shaking. She'd noticed it first while applying lipstick that morning, a soft rose shade her sister swore made her look 10 years younger, and the tremor had nearly drawn a line across her cheek. At 58, she'd mastered the art of steadying her hands for most tasks, transferring from bed to chair, maneuvering through narrow doorways, even the complex dance of getting dressed when your legs don't cooperate. But this was different. This was terror. The coffee cup sat in front of her, filled with a latte she'd ordered 20 minutes ago and hadn't touched. Steam had long since stopped rising from it. Sarah wrapped both hands around the ceramic, trying to absorb its warmth, trying to ground herself in something solid. Romano's Cafe occupied a corner spot in downtown Boston's financial district, all exposed brick and reclaimed wood, the kind of place where young professionals typed furiously on MacBooks, while older couples shared desserts in comfortable silence. Sarah had chosen it carefully, public enough to feel safe, casual enough not to seem like she was trying too hard. It was 7:43 p.m. on a Thursday. He was 13 minutes late. Her phone buzzed. Her daughter Rebecca. "Mom, how's it going?" "Is he there yet?" Sarah typed back with one hand. "Running late. Traffic." She didn't mention the knot in her stomach. Didn't mention that she'd almost canceled 3 times today. Didn't mention that this was her first date since the accident 4 years ago, and every single part of her screamed that this was a mistake. "You've got this? He's lucky to meet you." Sarah smiled despite herself. Rebecca had been the one to push her toward online dating, had helped her write a profile that was honest without being pitying, had coached her through sending that first message. "You're not defined by the chair, Mom," Rebecca had said. "You're Sarah Mitchell. You raised 2 kids alone. You ran a whole hospital department. You survived a car accident that should have killed you. Some guy on the internet would be blessed just to buy you coffee." The bell above the cafe door chimed. Sarah's spine straightened automatically, old habits from her years as director of nursing at Mass General, when posture meant authority and authority meant survival in a hospital's political landscape. A man walked in, tall, mid-50s, salt and pepper hair styled with the kind of casual precision that cost money. He wore a navy blazer over an open-collar shirt, no tie, and carried himself with the easy confidence of someone who'd spent a lifetime being listened to. Their eyes met. He smiled brief polite, and Sarah felt her heart kick against her ribs. This is him. This is actually him. Richard Chen. 56, divorced. 2 grown children. His profile said he was a financial consultant. Enjoyed sailing, was looking for meaningful connection with an intelligent woman who understands that life's second chapters can be even better than the first. Sarah had read that line maybe 40 times. She raised one hand, slightly a small wave. Richard's gaze dropped to the wheelchair. Sarah watched it happen in real time. The micro-expression that flickered across his face. The almost imperceptible step backward. The way his smile didn't quite reach his eyes anymore, but he approached anyway. "Sarah." "That's me." She kept her voice steady warm. "Richard?" "Yes, hi." He glanced at the chair across from her but didn't sit. "Listen, there's been a misunderstanding." The cafe noise seemed to fade. The espresso machine's hiss. The low murmur of conversation. The jazz playing through overhead speakers. all of it dimmed to a distant hum. "A misunderstanding," Sarah repeated. "Your profile." Richard shifted his weight, uncomfortable. "It didn't mention... I wasn't expecting..." He gestured vaguely toward her chair. Heat flooded Sarah's face. "It's in my profile, second paragraph. I was in a car accident 4 years ago. Spinal injury." "Right, but..." Richard exhaled through his nose. "I guess I thought you were recovered, walking again. You know how people say they've been through something but they're past it? I am past it. You're in a wheelchair. I'm aware." The words came out sharper than she intended. A couple at the next table had stopped talking. The barista was pretending to reorganize the pastry case, but kept glancing over. Richard ran a hand through his hair. "Look, I'm just being honest. I'm active. I hike. I travel. I need someone who can keep up with that lifestyle." "I don't think you can," Richard interrupted. "And I'm sorry, but I don't want to waste your time or mine pretending this is going to work when it clearly won't." Sarah's throat closed. She'd prepared for this, had practiced responses in the mirror, had told herself that if someone couldn't see past the chair, they weren't worth her time anyway. But nothing prepared her for the actual moment, for the casual cruelty of it, for how small it made her feel. "I see." Her voice came out barely above a whisper. Richard reached for his wallet, pulled out a $20 bill, and placed it on the table. "For your coffee, I really am sorry." He wasn't sorry. He was already turning away. Sarah's hands found the coffee cup again, gripped it, too tight. "Don't cry. Don't you dare cry. Not here. Not in front of strangers." But her hands were shaking worse now, and the cup was slipping, and she tried to adjust her grip, but it was too late. The cup hit the floor with a crack that sounded like a gunshot. Ceramic shattered. Coffee spread in a dark pool across the hardwood. Everyone turned to look, not at the mess, at her, at the woman in the wheelchair who couldn't even hold a cup steady. Sarah stared down at her lap, at her useless hands, at the pieces of ceramic scattered like evidence of her failure. "Oh, honey, don't worry about it." The barista was already hurrying over with a mop. "Happens all the time." It didn't happen all the time, and the cheerful reassurance somehow made it worse. Sarah fumbled for her purse, her vision blurring. She needed to get out, needed to leave before the tears came, before the weight of humiliation crushed her completely. But her hands wouldn't cooperate, couldn't grip the purse zipper, couldn't maneuver her chair backward without rolling through broken ceramic. Couldn't do anything except sit there frozen while sympathetic strangers watched her fall apart. This was a mistake, all of it. The profile, the date, the hope. Thinking someone could want this version of me. And then from somewhere near the entrance, a baby started crying. Not the fussy whimpering of a tired infant. The full-throated, desperate wailing of a child in distress. "Liam, please," a man's voice strained with exhaustion. "Buddy, come on, work with me here." The crying escalated. Sarah looked up, grateful for any distraction from her own misery. A man stood near the pickup counter, maybe mid-50s, wearing a dress shirt, with the sleeves rolled up and a tie loosened around his neck. His dark hair was threaded with gray, and deep lines bracketed his eyes and mouth, the kind that came from years of stress, not laughter. Strapped to his chest in a baby carrier was an infant maybe 8 or 9 months old, red-faced and screaming. The man was trying to retrieve a coffee order with one hand while supporting the baby's head with the other, and failing at both. "Sir, we have your order ready," the barista called over the crying. "2 Americanos and..." "I can't." The man's voice cracked with frustration. "I need a minute. He won't stop, and I can't carry everything, and..." The baby's cries grew more frantic. Other customers were staring, now annoyed or sympathetic or both. The man closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and began swaying gently. Liam, hey, Daddy's here. It's okay. You're okay." The baby wasn't convinced. Sarah found herself watching her own crisis momentarily forgotten. The man looked utterly lost. Not angry, not embarrassed, just bone-deep exhausted and desperate for his child to stop crying. He started humming off-key, uncertain some melody Sarah didn't recognize. The baby hiccuped, still crying, but slightly less intensely. "That's it," the man murmured. "That's my boy. We're okay. We're okay." But they weren't okay. The man reached for his coffee order, still trying to sway and hum, and knocked over the cardboard carrier. Both cups hit the counter lids, popping off coffee flooding everywhere. "Damn it!" He jerked back, but not before liquid splashed his shirt. The baby's crying renewed with fresh vigor. "I'm so sorry," the barista said, already grabbing towels. "Let me remake those." "No." The man's shoulders sagged. "No, it's fine. We'll just go." He turned toward the exit, one hand cradling the screaming baby's head, moving with the careful exhaustion of someone who'd been running on empty for far too long, and walked straight into the table next to Sarah's. The impact wasn't hard, but it was enough to knock a water glass onto the floor. More shattering. More mess. More heads turning. "I'm sorry." The man's voice rose over the baby's cries. "I'm so sorry, I'll pay for that." "Just watch where you're going," someone muttered. The man flinched like he'd been slapped, and Sarah saw it. The exact same expression she'd felt on her own face 10 minutes ago. Shame, failure, the desperate wish to disappear. Before she could think better of it, Sarah called out, "Hey!" The man turned, startled. "You dropped something." She pointed to a pacifier on the floor a few feet from where her own coffee had shattered. The man stared at it like it was a life preserver. "I can't." He glanced down at the baby, at his coffee-stained shirt, at the mess he'd created. "If I bend down, I'll drop him." "I've got it." Sarah wheeled forward, careful to avoid both pools of liquid and scattered ceramic, and retrieved the pacifier. She held it up. "It's been on the floor," she said. "Do you care?" The man almost laughed. At this point, no. She wheeled closer and handed it to him. He took it with his free hand, their fingers brushing briefly. His hands were shaking too, she noticed, just like hers had been. "Thank you," he said, and plugged the pacifier into the baby's mouth. The crying stopped. Instantly. Silence fell across the cafe like a benediction. The baby's huge brown eyes blinked up at Sarah Pacifier, bobbing as he sucked contentedly. The man exhaled so heavily, his whole body seemed to deflate. "I owe you my life," he said. "You owe me nothing." "No, seriously. That's the 4th meltdown today. I thought I was going to lose my mind." Sarah smiled despite everything. Rough day. Rough year. The man shifted the baby's weight, wincing slightly. "My sister was supposed to meet me here to take him for the night, but she got stuck at work, and he's teething, and I haven't slept more than 3 hours straight in 8 months, and I just spilled coffee all over myself in public like an idiot." "Join the club." Sarah gestured to the puddle of her own spilled coffee. "I shattered my cup about 5 minutes ago." The man looked at the mess, then at her, then back at the mess. "Were you aiming for dramatic effect?" Sarah laughed, a surprised, genuine sound that startled her. "Something like that." The barista appeared with more towels and a dustpan. "Don't worry about it, really. I'll get this cleaned up." The man pulled out his wallet with his free hand. "Let me pay for the damages." "Sir, it's fine." "I insist." "So do I." The barista smiled. "Just take your baby and go get some sleep." The man looked like he might argue, then simply nodded. He turned back to Sarah. The baby was still staring at her pacifier, working steadily, one tiny fist reaching toward her face. "He likes you," the man said. "He doesn't like most people." "Smart kid." "I'm James, by the way. James Cooper." Sarah Mitchell. "Thank you again for the pacifier, and for not judging the complete disaster of a human being standing in front of you." Only if you don't judge the disaster sitting in front of you. James's eyes dropped briefly to her wheelchair, not with the calculation she'd seen in Richard's gaze, but simple acknowledgement. When he looked back at her face, there was no pity there. Just tiredness and a hint of understanding. "Deal," he said. The baby reached out again, and this time his fingers caught Sarah's hair tangling in the gray-streaked brown. "Liam, no." James tried to extract the tiny fist. "Sorry," he grabs everything. "It's okay." Sarah carefully unwound the baby's fingers from her hair. "He's got good grip strength. Try getting him to let go of my phone sometime." Sarah smiled. Liam smiled back, a gummy pacifier-impeded grin that somehow felt like sunshine. "Would you?" James hesitated. "This is going to sound weird, but would you mind if we sat down?" "Just for a minute. I need to catch my breath before attempting the tea." Sarah gestured to the empty chair across from her. "Be my guest." James sank into it like a man who'd been standing for days. Liam immediately reached for Sarah again. "No buddy personal space." "It's fine," Sarah said. "Really?" Liam's small hand patted her arm, gentle and curious. And for the first time since Richard walked out, the tightness in Sarah's chest began to ease. They sat in silence for a moment, not uncomfortable, just two exhausted people sharing space. Finally, James said, "So, rough day for you too." Sarah considered lying, considered the polite deflection. But something about this stranger, this overwhelmed, coffee-stained, clearly drowning man, made her want to tell the truth. "Bad date," she said. James winced. "How bad?" He took one look at the wheelchair and left. "Jesus." Didn't even sit down. "I'm sorry." "Don't be." Sarah straightened her shoulders. "His loss, right?" "Absolutely his loss." The words were automatic, polite. But James was looking at her like he meant them. Liam made a happy gurgling sound and patted Sarah's hand again. "See?" James said. "Liam agrees. That guy was an idiot." Despite everything, Sarah laughed. And sitting there in a cafe full of strangers, surrounded by broken ceramic and spilled coffee, with a baby she'd just met holding her hand, and an exhausted man she didn't know, offering her the first genuine kindness she'd received all night, Sarah felt something she hadn't felt in 4 years. Not hope exactly, but maybe the possibility of it. "You know what?" Sarah said. "I was going to go home and eat an entire pint of ice cream while crying. Solid plan. But I'm thinking maybe I'll just sit here a while longer instead." James smiled. "Mind if we join you?" "I'd like that." And for the first time that night, Sarah meant it. The barista brought fresh coffee without being asked on the house she insisted. James tried to protest, but she waved him off and disappeared back behind the counter. Sarah wrapped her hands around the new cup, steadier now. James adjusted Liam in the carrier, and the baby settled against his chest with a contented sigh, eyes drooping. "Finally," James breathed. "I thought he'd never calm down." "How old is he?" 8 months, almost 9. James's voice softened. "He's my nephew, was my nephew. Now he's mine." Sarah heard the weight in those words. "My sister died." James continued, not looking at her. "Car accident, 6 months ago. She was a single mom and I was listed as Liam's guardian, so—" He trailed off, one hand rubbing the baby's back in slow circles. "So now I'm a 54-year-old bachelor raising an infant. I'm so sorry." "Everyone says that." James finally met her eyes. "I appreciate it, but I never know what to say back. Thank you. It's okay when it's not okay. My sister's dead and I'm failing at keeping her son alive. And sometimes I stand in the frozen food aisle at Stop and Shop and cry because I can't remember if babies are allowed to have strawberries yet." Sarah felt her throat tighten. "For what it's worth," she said quietly. "He looks alive and healthy to me." "He is," somehow, despite my complete incompetence. "You're here. You showed up. That's not incompetence." James laughed bitter. I spilled coffee on myself and knocked over a water glass. I dropped my cup and made a scene. Touché. They smiled at each other. Two people bonded by public humiliation and shattered ceramics. Liam's eyes had fully closed now, his breathing evening out into sleep. "He's beautiful," Sarah said. "He's a tyrant." But James's voice was full of love. A tiny, demanding, perfect tyrant. "How are you managing with work and everything?" James ran a hand through his hair. "Barely. I'm an executive at a consulting firm. Was an executive. I took family leave after my sister died, but that ran out 2 months ago. Now I'm trying to work from home while taking care of him, and it's—" He shook his head. "I'm drowning. I don't know how single parents do this." "You find a way." Sarah's voice was quiet. "Because you have to." James looked at her. Really looked. "You've been there." It wasn't a question. "I raised 2 kids mostly on my own," Sarah said. "My ex-husband was around physically but checked out in every way that mattered. After the divorce, it was just me." "How old are they now?" 32 and 28, both married. My daughter just had her first baby." "So you're a grandmother?" Sarah smiled. "I am. Little girl named Emma, 3 months old." "Does it get easier?" James asked. "Please tell me it gets easier." "It does." Sarah paused. "And then it doesn't. And then it does again. Parenting is waves. You just learn to swim." "I'm not a strong swimmer." Neither was I. They sat in comfortable silence. Around them, the cafe had returned to normal. Conversations resumed. The espresso machine hissed. Soft jazz played. But at their table, something had shifted. 2 strangers, both drowning in their own ways, had found a moment of solid ground. Finally, James said, "Can I ask what happened with the accident?" Sarah had told this story 100 times, to doctors, to physical therapists, to well-meaning acquaintances who wanted to understand. Usually she kept it clinical, factual, removed. But sitting across from this exhausted man holding his sleeping nephew, she found herself wanting to tell the truth. "4 years ago," she began, "I was driving home from a nursing conference in New Hampshire, 3 in the morning. I was tired but thought I could make it. And then—" she paused. "There was a deer. I swerved, lost control on black ice, went off the road and rolled." James's expression didn't change. No pity, no horror, just listening. "I don't remember the impact," Sarah continued. "Just waking up in the hospital 3 days later, unable to feel my legs. Spinal cord injury, incomplete, which means I have some sensation, but no motor function below T8. T8. 8th thoracic vertebra, middle of your back. And they told you you'd never walk again." They told me probably not, but people hear probably and think miracle. Like if I just tried hard enough, believed enough, I'd beat the odds. Sarah's voice hardened. "I spent a year in physical therapy, did everything they asked, more than they asked, and you know what I learned. What sometimes probably means no, and accepting that isn't giving up. It's just being realistic." James nodded slowly. "My sister used to say something similar, about grief. People kept telling her she'd get over losing Liam's father. He died before Liam was born. But she said you don't get over it. You just learn to carry it." She sounds like she was smart. She was. James's voice cracked slightly. "She was the best person I knew." Liam stirred in his sleep, and James instinctively started swaying again. Sarah watched the automatic motion, the protective hand cradling the baby's head, the exhaustion etched into every line of James's face. "You're doing better than you think," she said. "You don't know that." "I do actually, because you're here. You didn't give up when he wouldn't stop crying. You didn't walk away when things got hard. You're trying, and that's more than a lot of people do." James was quiet for a long moment. Then, "The guy who left you tonight is the world's biggest idiot." Sarah blinked, surprised. "I mean it," James continued. You're sitting here talking to a complete stranger covered in coffee holding his crying baby's hand and acting like it's the most natural thing in the world. You're kind and honest and clearly intelligent, and he walked away because of a wheelchair." James shook his head. "That's not a man worth your time." Sarah felt unexpected tears prick her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. "I'm just telling the truth." They sat in silence again. Liam slept on, oblivious to the connection forming between two broken people in a cafe. Finally, James glanced at his watch and sighed. "I should get him home. Bedtime was an hour ago." "Of course." James stood carefully supporting Liam's head. The baby didn't stir. "Sarah," he said, "I know this is forward, but would you mind if I got your number?" Her heart skipped. "Not like that," James added quickly. "I mean, not that I wouldn't. You're obviously—" He stopped, flustered. "I just meant you seem like someone who understands what it's like to feel like you're drowning, and I could use someone to talk to who gets it." Sarah smiled. "I'd like that." They exchanged numbers. As James headed toward the door, Liam tucked against his chest, he turned back. "Hey, Sarah." "Yeah. Thank you. For the pacifier. And for talking. And for making me feel like less of a disaster." "Anytime." "I mean it. I'll text you." "I hope you do." James smiled, genuine and warm, and walked out into the Boston night. Sarah sat alone at her table, surrounded by the ghosts of broken ceramic and spilled coffee, and a date that went horribly wrong. But for the first time in years, she didn't feel alone. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is James. Made it to the car without dropping him. Miracles do happen. Thank you again." Sarah typed back. "The night's still young. Don't celebrate yet. Fair point. If you hear sirens in 20 minutes, send help." Sarah laughed out loud. And as she wheeled herself toward the cafe exit past the sympathetic barista and the other customers who'd witnessed her humiliation, she felt something unexpected bloom in her chest. Not hope exactly, but maybe the memory of what hope used to feel like. And for tonight, that was enough. 3 days passed before James texted again. Sarah had checked her phone approximately 400 times in those 3 days, which was ridiculous. She was 58 years old, not some teenager waiting for a boy to call. But every time her phone buzzed with a notification from her daughter, or a spam email, or literally anything that wasn't James, she felt a small stab of disappointment. She told herself it didn't matter. He was a stranger who'd had a bad night. They'd shared a moment of mutual disaster, nothing more. People said they'd keep in touch all the time and never did. But Thursday morning, her phone actually rang. James's name appeared on the screen. Sarah stared at it for 3 rings before answering. "Hello? Sarah, hi, it's James. Is this a bad time?" His voice sounded strained, almost frantic. "No, I'm just having coffee. Is everything okay?" "Define okay." There was a crash in the background, followed by Liam's crying. "My nanny quit. Just walked out. Said she couldn't handle him anymore, which is insane because he's a baby. What's there to handle? And I have a presentation to the board in 2 hours that I absolutely cannot miss, and I've called every backup person I know, and no one's available, and I'm completely losing my mind." Sarah could hear him pacing. Could picture him, exactly rumpled shirt, frazzled, bouncing Liam while trying not to spiral. "Where are you?" she asked. "My apartment. Back Bay. Why?" "What's the address?" James rattled it off. "I'll be there in 30 minutes, Sarah said. Silence. Then, "Sarah, I can't ask you to." "You're not asking. I'm offering." "You don't even know me." "I know you need help. That's enough." Another pause. "Thank you," James said, and his voice cracked on the words. "God, thank you." Sarah hung up and immediately called Rebecca. "Mom!" "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. I need to borrow your wheelchair-accessible van." "Why?" "Where are you going?" "To help a friend." "What friend, Mom? You don't have any." Rebecca stopped herself. Sorry that came out wrong. It's fine. You're right. I don't have many friends anymore. Sarah grabbed her purse. But I'm working on that. Can I borrow the van or not? Of course. I'll drop it off in 15 minutes. But Mom. Yes. Be careful, okay? I know you're lonely, but... Rebecca. I just don't want you to get hurt. I'm going to babysit an infant, not join a cult. Still, I'll be careful. I promise. 28 minutes later, Sarah knocked on James's apartment door. It opened immediately. James looked worse than he had at the cafe. His shirt was buttoned wrong, his hair stood up in several directions, and there was what appeared to be baby food smeared on his shoulder. You came, he said, like he couldn't quite believe it. I said I would. Liam was screaming in the background. James ran a hand over his face. He's been like this for an hour. I think he misses the nanny, or he's sick, or he hates me. I honestly have no idea anymore. May I? Sarah wheeled past him into the apartment. It was chaos. Beautiful chaos, but chaos nonetheless. Expensive furniture covered in baby toys. Bottles in various states of use scattered across the coffee table. A pack-and-play set up in the middle of what was clearly meant to be a dining room. Liam sat in a bouncy seat, red-faced and furious, tiny fists pumping. Sarah wheeled directly to him. Hey there, angry man, she said softly. Remember me? Liam's crying stuttered. Sarah reached down and unbuckled him, lifting him carefully into her lap. He was heavier than she expected, solid and warm. I've got you, she murmured, settling him against her chest. You're okay. We're okay. Liam hiccuped, still fussing but less intensely. Sarah started humming an old lullaby she'd sung to her own children a lifetime ago. Slowly, incredibly, Liam began to quiet. James stood frozen in the doorway, staring. How did you... He's not sick or upset, Sarah said calmly. He's overstimulated and exhausted. When did he last nap? I don't know. This morning, maybe. James, it's almost 11. Is that bad? Sarah looked at him. You really have no idea what you're doing, do you? None whatsoever. Despite everything, Sarah laughed. Liam's eyes were already drooping against her shoulder. Go, Sarah said. Get ready for your presentation. I've got him. Are you sure? Positive. James hesitated for one more moment, then disappeared down the hallway. Sarah sat in the quiet apartment, rocking gently, feeling the weight of this baby she barely knew settling into sleep against her chest. And something inside her, something that had been locked away since the accident, since her children grew up, and moved away, since she'd convinced herself she was done being needed, cracked open. When James emerged 20 minutes later, showered and dressed in a proper suit, Liam was fully asleep. You're a miracle worker, James whispered. I'm a grandmother who remembers the basics. Can you stay? I'll pay you whatever the nanny was making. I don't want your money. Sarah, I want to help, that's all. James looked at her for a long moment. Why? He asked finally. We're basically strangers. Sarah thought about Thursday night, about sitting alone in that cafe, drowning in humiliation, about this man and his crying baby appearing like some kind of answer to a question she hadn't known she was asking. Because you helped me first, she said simply. You didn't have to sit with me, didn't have to be kind, but you were. So now I'm returning the favor. James's eyes were suspiciously bright. I really need to go, he said. Then go. If he wakes up? I raised 2 children, and I've been babysitting my granddaughter twice a week for 3 months. I think I can handle one 8-month-old. His bottles are in the fridge. Diapers are in the nursery second door on the left. Emergency numbers are on the fridge and... James. What? Breathe. We're fine. He nodded, grabbed his briefcase and headed for the door, then stopped. Sarah. Yeah. Thank you. Seriously, I don't know what I would have done without you. Probably set something on fire. He laughed, surprised and genuine, and then he was gone. Sarah sat in the quiet apartment feeling Liam's heartbeat against her chest and realized she hadn't felt this necessary in years. Liam slept for 2 hours. Sarah used the time to investigate James's situation, and what she found was both impressive and depressing. The apartment itself was beautiful high ceilings, hardwood floors, huge windows overlooking the Charles River, original art on the walls, expensive furniture. The home of someone successful who'd built a life around work and solitude. And then in the middle of all that carefully curated adult space were the hastily assembled remnants of sudden parenthood. A portable crib that wasn't quite set up correctly. Bottles that hadn't been properly sterilized. Baby clothes still in shopping bags with price tags attached. A stack of parenting books on the coffee table. All of them bookmarked in the first 3 chapters. James was trying. That much was obvious. But he was also drowning. Sarah found herself in the kitchen washing bottles and organizing the chaos. Not because she had to, because it felt good to be useful again. When Liam woke up, he didn't cry, just made small cooing sounds from where he was still nestled against her. "Hey, sleepy boy," Sarah said softly. "Feel better." Liam blinked up at her with those huge brown eyes, then smiled. Sarah's heart melted completely. She fed him a bottle, changed his diaper with the efficiency of long practice, and was in the middle of showing him a picture book when her phone rang. Rebecca. "Mom, where are you? You said you'd be back by noon." "I'm still at James's apartment." "Who's James?" "The friend I'm helping." "Mom." Rebecca's voice took on that concerned daughter tone. "You don't know this person. What if he's a 54-year-old man raising his infant nephew alone because his sister died. He's not a serial killer. You don't know that." "Rebecca, I appreciate your concern, but I'm fine. Better than fine, actually." Silence. Then, "You sound different." "Different how?" "Happy." Sarah looked down at Liam, who was trying to eat the corner of the book. "Maybe I am," she said. After she hung up, Sarah wheeled to the window with Liam in her lap. They watched the river together, boats cutting white lines through gray water. "Your uncle is a good man," she told Liam. "A little clueless, but good." Liam grabbed her finger. "Yeah," Sarah said. "I think we'll keep him." James came home at 3:30, loosening his tie as he walked through the door. "How did it—" He stopped. Sarah had Liam on a blanket on the floor doing tummy time. The apartment was noticeably cleaner. The bottles were organized. The chaos had been tamed. "What did you do?" James asked. "Just straightened up a little." "A little, Sarah, you didn't have to." "I wanted to." She rolled Liam onto his back and he giggled. "Besides, he's been perfect. Napped for 2 hours, ate like a champ, and only had 1 diaper explosion. Only 1. That's a good day." James sank onto the couch, exhaustion written across every line of his face. "How was the presentation?" Sarah asked. "Disaster. I forgot half my notes, stumbled through the projections, and probably lost us the client." "I'm sorry." "It's my own fault. I haven't slept more than 4 hours a night in months. I can't focus. Can't think straight. I'm failing at everything: work, parenting, basic human functioning." Sarah heard the desperation in his voice, the edge of someone about to break. "James," she said carefully, "when's the last time you took a real break? Define real." "More than 20 minutes in the shower." He laughed bitterly. "Then never." "You need help. Consistent help, not just emergency babysitting." "I know. That's what the nanny was supposed to be, and you saw how that turned out." Sarah took a breath. "What if I helped?" James looked up. "Sarah, I can't ask you to." "I'm not asking permission. I'm making an offer." She kept her voice steady. "I'm retired. My days are mostly empty. My daughter thinks I spend too much time alone, and she's probably right. I love babies, and you clearly need someone. I can't pay you what you're worth. I don't want your money. Then why? Because it feels good to be needed again, Sarah said quietly. Because since the accident, I felt like the world moved on without me. Like I became invisible. But today, taking care of Liam, helping you, I felt useful. I felt like I mattered. James's expression softened. You do matter, he said. Then let me do this. Not as a job, as friends helping each other. Friends? Yeah, friends. James looked at Liam, who was gnawing on his own foot, then back at Sarah. Are you sure? He asked. Completely. What about your family? Won't they worry? My daughter worries about everything. That's her default state. But I'm an adult. I can make my own choices. James was quiet for a long moment. Then, okay. Yes, God, yes. You have no idea how much I need this. Sarah smiled. Then it settled. That night, after she'd gone home, Sarah lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Rebecca had called twice more, full of questions and concerns that Sarah deflected with practiced ease. But alone in the dark, Sarah let herself acknowledge the truth. She was lonely, had been lonely for 4 years. The accident had stolen more than her ability to walk. It had stolen her sense of purpose, her career, her identity as someone strong and capable. Her friends had slowly drifted away, uncomfortable with her new reality. Her children loved her, but had their own lives. Most days, she felt like a ghost, haunting her own existence. But today, holding Liam, helping James, being needed. Today, she'd felt alive. Her phone buzzed. A text from James. Liam went down without a fight for the first time in weeks. Whatever magic you worked, thank you. Sarah smiled in the darkness and typed back, no magic, just practice. See you tomorrow. Please, if you're still willing. I am. Sarah. Yeah, I meant what I said earlier. You matter. And not just because you're helping with Liam, you just matter. Sarah read the message 3 times, something warm unfurling in her chest. Good night, James. Good night. Over the next 2 weeks, Sarah fell into a routine. She arrived at James's apartment every morning at 8. He'd leave for work, usually frazzled and running late, and she'd spend the day with Liam. They developed their own rhythm. Morning bottle and tummy time. Mid-morning walk along the river if the weather was decent. Lunch and a nap. Afternoon playtime. Late afternoon bottle and more tummy time, while Sarah read to him from board books. James would come home around 6, sometimes earlier if he could swing it, always apologetic and grateful. And they'd talk. At first, just logistics about Liam's day. But gradually the conversations deepened. James told her about his sister Michelle, how she'd been a free spirit, an artist, constantly broke, but deliriously happy. How she'd gotten pregnant via sperm donor because she wanted a child, but not a relationship. How she'd died instantly when a drunk driver ran a red light. I still can't believe she's gone, James said one evening, watching Liam play with blocks on the floor. Sometimes I look at him and I see her. The same eyes, same stubborn chin, and it hurts so much I can barely breathe. That's love, Sarah said quietly. The price of loving someone is the pain of losing them. Was it like that with your ex-husband? Sarah laughed. No, losing him was a relief. Bad marriage. Lonely marriage. He was there but never really present. Worked constantly, had affairs, made me feel invisible. The divorce was the best decision I ever made. Do you ever miss being married? I miss companionship, Sarah admitted. Someone to share things with, someone who actually sees me. James looked at her. I see you. The words hung in the air between them. Sarah's breath caught. James. Sorry, that was too much. He stood abruptly. I should put Liam to bed. But the words stayed with Sarah long after she left. The 3rd week, James invited her to stay for dinner. Nothing fancy, he said. Just takeout. But Liam always seems happier when you're around, and honestly, so am I. Sarah agreed. They ate Thai food on the couch, while Liam sprawled on his blanket, batting at a mobile. "Can I ask you something?" James said. "Of course." "That night at the cafe, the guy who left, do you ever think about trying again?" Sarah set down her pad thai. "Dating. Yeah. Honestly, no. That experience pretty much killed any desire I had to put myself out there again." "That's his fault, not yours. I know that intellectually, but emotionally." Sarah shook her head. "It's hard to believe anyone could want this version of me." "Sarah, I'm not fishing for compliments. I'm just being honest. I'm 58. I'm in a wheelchair. I come with limitations and complications. Most men my age want someone they can travel with, hike with, keep up with their active lifestyle. I can't offer that. The right person wouldn't care about any of that. Maybe, but I haven't found that person." James was quiet for a moment. Then, "What if you already have?" Sarah's heart stopped. "What?" James put down his food, turned to face her fully. "These past few weeks with you have been the best weeks I've had since Michelle died. Not just because you help with Liam, but because you're here. Because talking to you makes everything feel less impossible. Because you understand what it's like to have your whole life turned upside down and still get up every morning and try." "James, I know this is crazy. I know we barely know each other. But Sarah, when I'm with you, I don't feel like I'm drowning anymore. I feel like maybe I can actually do this." Tears pricked Sarah's eyes. "You're grieving," she said gently. "And exhausted. You're not thinking clearly." "I'm thinking more clearly than I have in months. You need a nanny, not a relationship." "I need you." The words hit her like a physical blow. "I can't be what you need," Sarah whispered. "I can't be someone's salvation." "I'm not asking you to save me. I'm asking you to let me see you. Really see you. The way you see me." Sarah closed her eyes, overwhelmed. "This is too much," she said. "Too fast. I need to go." She wheeled toward the door, hands shaking. "Sarah, wait. I'll see you tomorrow. For Liam. But James, I can't." She left before he could respond, and cried the entire drive home. That night, Rebecca showed up at Sarah's apartment with wine and concern. "Mom, what's going on? You sounded terrible on the phone." Sarah told her everything. About James, about Liam, about the past 3 weeks, and the conversation tonight, and the terrifying, impossible possibility that someone might actually want her. Rebecca listened without interrupting. When Sarah finished, her daughter was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Are you in love with him?" "What? No. I barely know him." "But you could be, if you let yourself." Sarah wiped her eyes. "I'm scared." "Of what?" "Of believing this is real and having it fall apart. Of letting myself hope and getting destroyed again. Of—" Her voice broke. "Of not being enough." Rebecca took her mother's hands. "Mom, you are enough. You've always been enough. The wheelchair doesn't change that. Your age doesn't change that. You're smart and strong and kind, and any man would be lucky to have you." "But what if he realizes? What if he doesn't?" Rebecca interrupted. "What if this is exactly what it seems like? What if he genuinely cares about you? Then I have even more to lose. Or more to gain." Sarah looked at her daughter. "When did you get so wise? I learned from the best." Rebecca squeezed her hands. "Mom, you've spent 4 years being careful, being safe. And I get it. The accident changed everything. But at some point, you have to decide if you're going to let fear run your life, or if you're going to take a chance on something good. What if it's not good? What if it's a mistake? Then it's a mistake. But at least you'll know you tried." Sarah sat in silence, her daughter's words echoing in her head. Finally, she said, "I don't know if I'm brave enough." "Yes, you are. Rebecca said firmly. You survived a car accident that should have killed you. You rebuilt your entire life from scratch. You go out into a world that isn't designed for you and you do it anyway. If that's not brave, I don't know what is. The next morning, Sarah almost didn't go. She sat in her van outside James's building for 15 minutes, hands on the wheel, trying to find the courage to face him. Her phone buzzed. A text from James. I'm sorry about last night. I shouldn't have said all that. Please don't let my stupidity ruin what we have. Liam needs you. I need you. As friends, whatever you're comfortable with. Just please don't disappear. Sarah read it twice, then typed, I'm downstairs. Coming up. James opened the door looking exhausted and anxious. Sarah, Can we talk? She interrupted. After you leave for work, when Liam goes down for his nap. Hope and fear warred on James's face. Okay, he said. The morning passed in careful normalcy. Sarah fed Liam, played with him, sang to him. At 10:30 she put him down for his nap, and then she called James. Can you come home? She asked. Just for an hour. I think we need to have this conversation face to face. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He made it in 15. They sat across from each other in the living room, the space between them suddenly vast. I'm terrified, Sarah said without preamble. Of this, of you, of what you're offering. I'm terrified too. But you're also grieving and overwhelmed and maybe not thinking straight. Sarah, I know my own mind. Do you? Because 6 months ago your entire life changed. You're raising a baby alone. You're barely sleeping. You're under incredible stress. And I show up and help, and maybe that feels like love, but it might just be gratitude and relief. James leaned forward. You think I can't tell the difference? I think grief and loneliness can look a lot like love. You're right, James said. They can. But Sarah, I've been alone for a long time. I've been lonely for years, long before Michelle died. I know what loneliness feels like. This isn't that. Then what is it? It's wanting to hear about your day. It's thinking about you when you're not here. It's the way Liam lights up when you walk in, and how that makes me light up too. It's respecting everything you've survived and being amazed by your strength. He stopped, running a hand through his hair. It's wanting more. Not just help with Liam, but you. All of you. Sarah felt tears building. I don't know how to let someone in again, she whispered. I don't know how to trust this. Then don't trust it yet. James's voice was gentle. Just don't run. Stay. Let's figure it out together. No pressure, no expectations. Just two people who maybe have something worth exploring. And if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. But at least we tried. Sarah looked at this man who'd stumbled into her life 3 weeks ago, covered in coffee and carrying a crying baby. This man who saw her. Not the wheelchair. Not the limitations. Just her. Okay, she said finally. We can try. James's face broke into a smile. Yeah. But slowly. And carefully. And if at any point this starts feeling like a mistake, we'll deal with it. James reached across the space between them and took her hand. Together. His hand was warm and steady, and for the first time in 4 years, Sarah let herself hope. 2 months passed like water finding its level, settling into something that felt almost like normal. Sarah showed up every morning at 8. James left for work with increasing reluctance, always turning back at the door for one more look at her with Liam. They had dinner together 3 nights a week, sometimes 4. On weekends they took Liam to the park, to the children's museum, once to the aquarium, where the baby pressed his palms against the glass and shrieked with delight at the sea turtles. They didn't talk about what they were, didn't define it, just existed in this careful space between friendship and something more. James would touch her hand when he passed her coffee. Sarah would catch him watching her with an expression she couldn't quite name. They orbited each other like planets, held by gravity, close but not quite touching. until Rebecca's wedding. Sarah had mentioned it in passing one evening while folding Liam's laundry. "My son's getting married in 3 weeks," she said. "Big wedding, 200 people. His fiancée's family is very traditional, very proper." "That sounds nice," James said, not looking up from his laptop. "It would be, except I have to go alone." That got his attention. "Why alone?" Sarah shrugged, trying to appear casual. "Because I'm divorced, and my ex-husband is bringing his girlfriend who's younger than our children, and my daughter will be there with her husband, and I'll be the sad single mother in the wheelchair sitting by myself at the family table." "Sarah." "It's fine. I'm used to it." "What if you didn't go alone?" She looked up. "What?" James closed his laptop. "What if I went with you?" "James, you don't have to. I want to." He leaned forward. "Look, we've been doing this dance for 2 months, pretending we're just friends, being careful. But Sarah, I don't want to be careful anymore. I want to be with you. Publicly. Proudly. And if that means getting dressed up and sitting through a wedding, then sign me up." Sarah's throat tightened. "You'd do that." "I'd do anything for you." He said it simply, like it was the most obvious truth in the world. "You know that by now, don't you?" She did, but hearing him say it out loud still made her chest ache. "What about Liam?" "Rebecca can watch him. Or we'll bring him. Babies at weddings are basically good luck, right?" Despite herself, Sarah laughed. "I don't think that's a thing." "Then we'll make it a thing." James stood and crossed to her, kneeling so they were eye level. "Come on. Let me be your date. Let me show everyone that you're not alone. That you're wanted. That you're—" He stopped, seemed to gather courage. "That you're loved." The word hung between them. Neither had said it before. Sarah reached out, cupped his face with one hand. "You love me," she whispered. "I think I've loved you since you picked up that pacifier and didn't judge me for being a complete disaster." He turned his head, kissed her palm. "I know it's fast. I know it's complicated. But Sarah, I love you. Not because you help with Liam. Not because you make my life easier. But because you make me want to be better. Because you're strong and honest and kind. Because when I'm with you, everything makes sense." Tears spilled down Sarah's cheeks. "I love you too," she said. "God help me, I do." James kissed her, then gentle and careful and full of promise. And Sarah let herself fall. The wedding was at the Four Seasons, because of course it was. Sarah sat in the accessible room James had insisted on booking, staring at herself in the mirror. She'd chosen a deep emerald dress with 3/4 sleeves and a draped neckline. Rebecca had done her makeup, covering the gray with subtle highlights, making her look younger than her 58 years. But all Sarah could see was the wheelchair. A knock at the door. "Come in." James entered, stunning in a charcoal suit, and stopped dead. "Sarah, Jesus, you're beautiful." "I'm nervous." "Why?" "Because I'm about to walk into a room full of people who haven't seen me since before the accident. Because my ex-husband will be there with his child bride. Because everyone will stare at the wheelchair and whisper about how sad it is." Her voice broke. "Because I don't want you to be embarrassed by me." James crossed to her, immediately taking both her hands. "Listen to me," he said firmly. "I could never be embarrassed by you. Ever. You're the strongest person I know. And anyone who looks at you and sees anything other than a remarkable woman isn't worth your time. But, no buts. You're going to roll into that ballroom and you're going to be stunning, and I'm going to be the luckiest man there because I get to be with you." Sarah looked up at him, this man who'd appeared in her life like an answer to a prayer she hadn't known she was praying. "How are you real?" she whispered. "I ask myself the same thing about you every single day." He kissed her forehead, then offered his arm. "Ready." Sarah took a breath. "Ready." The ceremony was beautiful. Sarah's son Michael looked handsome and terrified at the altar. His bride Christina floated down the aisle in yards of white silk. The vows were traditional. The music was classical. Everything was perfect and proper, and exactly what Christina's society family expected. Sarah sat in the front row, James beside her in the accessible seating area they'd reserved. She felt the stares, heard the whispers, saw her ex-husband David do a double-take when he noticed her with another man. But James never wavered, just kept his hand over hers, steady and sure. When Michael and Christina were pronounced husband and wife, James leaned over and whispered, "One down, just the reception to go. The reception is 3 hours. Then we'll survive 3 hours." They almost made it. The cocktail hour was fine. People Sarah hadn't seen in years approached cautiously, offering sympathetic smiles and careful questions. How was she doing? Was she managing okay? Such a shame about the accident. James stayed close, deflecting the worst of it with practiced ease. "Sarah's doing incredibly well," he'd say. "She's been invaluable helping me with my nephew. I don't know what I'd do without her." The way he said it, not like she was broken, but like she was essential, made something warm bloom in Sarah's chest. Dinner was served. Sarah and James were seated at the family table with Rebecca and her husband David and his girlfriend Amber, who was indeed younger than both of Sarah's children and Michael's grandmother. David kept staring. Finally, as salads were being cleared, he leaned across the table. "Sarah, you look well." "Thank you, David." "And who's this?" He gestured to James with forced casualness. "James Cooper. I'm Sarah's—" James paused, looked at Sarah with a question in his eyes. She smiled. "Boyfriend." The word felt strange and perfect all at once. David's eyebrows shot up. "Boyfriend. I see." "We met a few months ago," James said smoothly. "Best thing that ever happened to me." Amber giggled. "That's so sweet. How did you meet?" "At a cafe," Sarah said. "He was having a crisis with his baby nephew. I helped. We started talking. The rest is history." "How romantic," Michael's grandmother said, beaming. "I always knew you'd find someone, Sarah dear. You deserve happiness." David shifted uncomfortably. "So James," he said, "what do you do?" "I'm a senior partner at Devereaux Consulting. We handle corporate restructuring primarily." Sarah watched David process this information. Watched him realize that James wasn't some random guy, but someone successful and established. Watched jealousy flicker across his face. "That must be demanding work," David said. "It is, especially while raising an infant." "You have a child." "My nephew. I adopted him after my sister passed away 6 months ago." James's voice was level, but Sarah heard the grief underneath. "He's 8 months old now. Sarah's been instrumental in helping me figure out how to be a parent." "Sarah always was good with children," David said, and there was something bitter in his tone. "Pity she wasted all those years on nursing when she could have just stayed home." The table went quiet. Sarah's hands tightened in her lap. Rebecca's face flushed with anger. "Dad, that's completely—" "It's fine," Sarah interrupted. She looked directly at David. "I didn't waste anything. I built a career I was proud of. I helped people. I provided for our children when you were too busy with work affairs to bother." David's face went red. "Sarah, and now I'm helping raise a beautiful baby boy and spending time with a man who actually appreciates me. So no, David, I don't think I wasted a single moment." Amber looked mortified. Rebecca was grinning. Michael's grandmother was trying not to laugh. James squeezed Sarah's hand under the table. David opened his mouth, closed it, then stood abruptly. "Excuse me," he muttered and walked away. The tension broke. "Mom," Rebecca said, eyes shining. "That was amazing." "Your father's an ass," Michael's grandmother announced. "Always has been. I told you not to marry him, Sarah, but did you listen?" Everyone laughed. The rest of dinner passed pleasantly. James charmed the grandmother with stories about Liam. Rebecca and her husband Mark asked about their relationship, genuinely interested. Even Michael stopped by to hug his mother and whisper that he was glad she'd found someone. But as the dancing started, Sarah felt the old familiar anxiety creep back. James must have sensed it because he leaned close. "What's wrong?" "Nothing." "Sarah," she sighed, "everyone's dancing, and I can't. I'm just going to sit here like furniture while I dance without you." James shook his head. "Not a chance." "James, it's fine. Go dance with Rebecca or—" He stood and offered his hand. "Dance with me." Sarah stared. "I can't dance." "Sure you can. Just in a different way." "James, trust me." Against her better judgment, Sarah took his hand. James led her to the edge of the dance floor, away from the main crowd. He positioned himself in front of her wheelchair, took both her hands, and began swaying gently to the music. "See," he said. "Dancing. This isn't dancing." "It is if we say it is." Around them, Sarah was acutely aware of people watching. But James never broke eye contact, never showed any sign that this was anything other than perfectly normal. The song was slow romantic. James moved with her, rocking gently, his thumbs tracing circles on the backs of her hands. "Thank you," Sarah whispered. "For what?" "For not making me feel broken." James stopped moving. Just looked at her with such intensity, it stole her breath. "You're not broken," he said. "You're perfect, exactly as you are." And then he leaned down and kissed her right there on the edge of the dance floor, in front of 200 wedding guests. Sarah heard gasps, whispers, but she didn't care, because James was kissing her like she was precious, like she was wanted, like she was whole. When they broke apart, Rebecca was standing nearby, tears streaming down her face. "Mom," she said, "I've never seen you this happy." Sarah realized her daughter was right. She was happy, genuinely, deeply happy, for the first time in 4 years. They left the wedding at 10, both exhausted but content. James drove them back to his apartment where Rebecca was babysitting Liam. She reported that the baby had been perfect, had gone down easy, and was sleeping soundly. "He missed you guys, though," Rebecca said, gathering her purse. "Kept looking at the door." Sarah and James walked her out, then stood in the quiet apartment. "Thank you," Sarah said. "For tonight. For everything." "Stop thanking me. I wanted to be there." "I know. But still." She wheeled closer, took his hands. "James, I need to tell you something." His expression grew concerned. "Okay. I'm scared. Of how much I feel for you. Of how fast this is happening. Of what it means." "Sarah, let me finish." She took a breath. "But I'm also tired of being scared. Tired of protecting myself. Tired of living half a life because I'm afraid of getting hurt. So I'm choosing this. I'm choosing you. I'm choosing us." James's eyes filled. "You mean that—" "I mean it." He pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her, and Sarah felt something inside her unlock completely. "I love you," he whispered into her hair. "God, I love you so much." "I love you too." They stayed like that for a long moment, just holding each other in the quiet. Finally, James pulled back slightly. "Move in with me," he said. Sarah blinked. "What?" "Move in. You're here all the time anyway. Liam adores you. I adore you. This apartment has been more of a home in the past 2 months than it's been in the 10 years I've lived here, and that's entirely because of you." "James, that's a huge step." "I know. And if you're not ready, I understand. But Sarah, I don't want to waste time being careful anymore. Life's too short and too precious. I want to wake up with you every morning. I want to raise Liam together. I want to build a life with you." Sarah's heart was pounding. What about my apartment? Keep it, sublet it, sell it, whatever you want. What about Rebecca? She'll think I'm moving too fast. Rebecca adores me. She told me tonight that she's never seen you this happy, and that if I ever hurt you, she'll destroy me. Despite everything, Sarah laughed. She said that, verbatim, very scary woman, your daughter. Sarah looked around the apartment, at the baby toys scattered across the floor, at the picture of her and James and Liam that sat on the mantel taken last week at the park, at the life that was already forming, whether she'd consciously acknowledged it or not. Okay, she said. James's eyes widened. Okay. Yes, I'll move in, but I'm keeping my apartment for 6 months just in case. In case of what? In case you realize I'm impossible to live with and change your mind. James kissed her hard and sure. Not a chance. I snore. Don't care. I'm messy in the bathroom. Still don't care. I watch terrible reality TV. I'll watch it with you. Sarah laughed, feeling lighter than she had in years. Then I guess we're doing this. We're doing this. They kissed again, and Sarah felt the future opening up in front of her. Not the future she'd planned before the accident, not the safe, careful half-life she'd been living, but something new, something unexpected, something worth fighting for. The sound of Liam crying interrupted them. I'll get him, Sarah said. No, let me, James, I'll get him. She wheeled down the hallway to the nursery. Liam was standing in his crib, tears streaming down his face, arms reaching for her. Hey, sweet boy, Sarah murmured, lifting him out. Bad dream. Liam buried his face in her shoulder, hiccuping. Sarah sat in the rocking chair, settling him against her chest, and began humming the same lullaby she'd sung to her own babies decades ago. Slowly, Liam relaxed. His crying quieted to whimpers, then to soft breathing. James appeared in the doorway watching them. You're so good with him, he said quietly. I had practice. It's more than that. James entered, sat on the ottoman beside her. You love him. I do. And he loves you. He lights up when you walk in the room, reaches for you before he reaches for me half the time. That's not true. It is. James touched Liam's curls gently. Sarah, I know we haven't talked about this, but would you consider being more than just someone who helps me raise him? Would you consider being his... He stopped, seeming to search for words. Sarah's heart hammered. His what? His mother. In all the ways that matter. The words hit her like a wave. James, You don't have to answer now. I just wanted you to know that's how I see this. How I see us. Not you helping me with childcare, but us raising him together, as a family. Tears spilled down Sarah's cheeks. She looked down at Liam, now sleeping peacefully in her arms. This baby who wasn't hers by blood, but felt like hers in every other way. I'd be honored, she whispered. James's face broke into a smile. He leaned forward, kissed her gently, careful not to wake the baby. Thank you, he murmured against her lips. For what? For saving us. Both of us. Sarah pulled back, looked him in the eye. You saved me first, she said. That night at the cafe. When you didn't look at me like I was broken. When you just saw me. You saved me, James. You just didn't know it. Then we saved each other. Yeah. Sarah said, looking down at the sleeping baby in her arms, then back at the man she loved. I guess we did. They sat in the quiet nursery, the three of them, and Sarah felt something she hadn't felt since before the accident. Complete. Not because someone had fixed her. Not because her limitations had disappeared. But because she'd found people who loved her exactly as she was, wheelchair and all. The next morning, Sarah called Rebecca while James was at the grocery store with Liam. I'm moving in with him, she said without preamble. Silence. Then, Mom, are you sure? Completely. You've only known him for 3 months. I know, it's fast. It's probably crazy. But Rebecca, I've spent 4 years being careful and scared and alone. I don't want to do that anymore. What if it doesn't work out? Then it doesn't work out. But at least I'll know I tried. At least I'll know I didn't let fear win. Another pause. You really love him, Rebecca said. It wasn't a question. I really do. And he loves me. Not the version of me from before the accident. Not some idea of who I used to be. Just me. As I am now. And Liam, Sarah smiled. Liam is perfect. I love him like he's my own. She heard Rebecca sigh, could picture her daughter running a hand through her hair, the way she always did when processing something big. Okay, Rebecca said finally. Okay. Yeah, if this is what you want, I support you. You deserve to be happy, Mom. And if James makes you happy, then I'm happy for you. Thank you, sweetheart. But if he hurts you, you'll destroy him. I know, he told me. Rebecca laughed. Good. Just making sure we're on the same page. After they hung up, Sarah sat in the quiet apartment and let herself feel it. The fear, yes. The uncertainty. But also the joy. The possibility. The future she hadn't dared to imagine. 2 weeks later, Sarah's belongings filled the second bedroom of James's apartment. Not everything she'd kept her promise to maintain her own place for 6 months, but enough to make it clear she was staying. They developed new routines. Morning coffee together while Liam ate breakfast in his high chair, flinging Cheerios with cheerful abandon. James leaving for work with a kiss that lingered a little too long. Sarah spending her days with Liam, taking him to music class and library story time in the park. Evenings cooking dinner together, trading off who held the baby. Nights curled on the couch watching terrible reality TV while Liam slept in his crib. It was domestic and ordinary and absolutely perfect. But Sarah knew the real test would come when they had to navigate the harder parts. The medical appointments. The accessibility issues. The moments when her disability became inconvenient or complicated. That test came sooner than expected. Sarah's wheelchair broke on a Tuesday morning. Not broke exactly, but the right wheel seized up, making it nearly impossible to maneuver. She could get around the apartment using furniture for support, but going out was impossible. James was at an all-day off-site meeting. Unreachable until evening. Sarah called the medical supply company, only to be told they couldn't send a technician for 3 days. 3 days, Sarah repeated. I can't be immobile for 3 days. I'm sorry, ma'am. That's the earliest available appointment. Sarah hung up, fighting tears of frustration. Liam chose that moment to start crying. Teething again, probably. He'd been fussy for days. Sarah tried to wheel to him, but the chair wouldn't cooperate. She tried to stand using the couch for support, but her legs buckled immediately. Liam's crying escalated. I'm coming, baby! Sarah called out, hating the shake in her voice. Just give me a second. She pulled herself across the floor, using her arms dragging her useless legs behind her. It was humiliating and exhausting, and by the time she reached Liam's playpen, she was crying too. She pulled him into her lap, both of them sitting on the floor, and just held him while they cried together. That's how James found them an hour later, having left his meeting early when he couldn't reach her by phone. Sarah, what's wrong? He rushed over, kneeling beside them. Sarah looked up, tears streaming, baby wailing, and felt the full weight of her limitations crash down. My chair broke, she said. And I couldn't get to him. I had to drag myself across the floor like... Her voice broke completely. James carefully took Liam, set him in his crib with a pacifier, then returned to Sarah. Can I pick you up? He asked gently. She nodded. He lifted her easily, carried her to the couch, settled her there with pillows for support. Then he knelt in front of her. Tell me what happened, he said. Sarah explained through tears. The broken wheel, the 3-day wait, her inability to reach Liam when he needed her. I'm useless, she finished. I can't even take care of a baby properly. Stop. James's voice was firm. You are not useless. Your chair broke. That's not your fault. But, no buts. Equipment fails. It happens. It doesn't mean you're failing. He took her hands. Sarah, you've been taking care of Liam for months. You're incredible with him. One mechanical failure doesn't erase any of that. I hate this, Sarah whispered. I hate being dependent, hate needing help, hate not being able to do simple things. I know. Do you really? She pulled her hands away. Because this is my life, James. This is what you signed up for. Broken wheelchairs and limitations, and me not being able to do things most people take for granted. James was quiet for a moment. Then he said, You're right. I don't know what it's like. I can't. But Sarah, I knew what I was signing up for. And I signed up anyway. Because I love you. All of you. Including the parts that are hard. But what if you get tired of it? Of me needing help? Of things being complicated? Then I'll still love you. He moved closer, cupped her face. Sarah, listen to me. You are not a burden. You are not too much. You are the person I want to build a life with broken wheelchair and all. And when things break, we'll fix them. Together. I don't want you to have to fix everything. I'm not fixing everything. I'm helping. There's a difference. He kissed her forehead. Let me help. Please. Sarah closed her eyes, leaning into him. I'm scared you'll leave, she admitted. When you realize how hard this is. I'm not leaving. Not today. Not tomorrow. Not ever. His voice was absolute. You're stuck with me, Sarah Mitchell, whether you like it or not. Despite everything, she laughed. What if I don't like it? Too bad. I already fell in love with you. No takebacks. She opened her eyes, looked at this man who kept showing up, kept staying, kept loving her, even when she made it difficult. I love you, she said. I love you too. He kissed her gently. Now let me call my cousin. He runs a medical supply business. I bet he can get someone here today. James, you don't have to. I want to. He pulled out his phone. Besides, Kevin owes me a favor. Time to collect. 3 hours later, Sarah's wheelchair was fixed. James had indeed called in a favor, and his cousin had sent a technician immediately. The wheel was repaired, lubricated better than before. Thank you, Sarah said as James helped her transfer from the couch back to her chair. Anytime. I mean it, for not making me feel weak, for just helping without making it a big deal. James knelt beside her. You're the strongest person I know. A broken wheelchair doesn't change that. Liam called out from his crib, awake from his nap. I'll get him, Sarah said. We'll both get him. They went to the nursery together. Sarah lifted Liam while James brought over a clean diaper. They changed him together, a practiced dance they'd developed over months. And Sarah realized something. This was her life now. Not the life she'd planned. Not the life she'd had before the accident. But a life full of love and partnership and a baby who reached for her with absolute trust. A life worth living, wheelchair and all. 6 months into living together, Sarah woke to find James sitting on the edge of the bed staring at his phone with an expression she'd never seen before. What's wrong? She asked, pushing herself up. He didn't answer immediately, just handed her the phone. An email. From someone named Patricia Chen. Sarah skimmed it quickly, her stomach sinking with each line. Patricia was Richard's sister. Richard, the man who'd walked out on Sarah at the cafe almost a year ago. Patricia had somehow gotten James's contact information and wanted to warn him that Sarah was a gold digger who preyed on successful men, that she used her disability to manipulate sympathy, that James should protect his assets before it was too late. James, Sarah breathed. This isn't... I know. His voice was tight. I know it's bullshit. Then why do you look like that? He turned to face her. Because I'm furious. Because someone who doesn't even know you felt entitled to send me this garbage. Because apparently that asshole from the cafe has been telling people You're some kind of con artist." Sarah felt sick. "What did you write back?" "Nothing yet. I wanted to talk to you first." He took the phone back, read the email again. "But Sarah, I want to destroy him. I want to call this Patricia person and tell her exactly what kind of man her brother is. I want to—" "Don't." James looked at her sharply. "What?" "Don't respond. Don't engage. People like that thrive on drama." Sarah's hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. "Richard's opinion doesn't matter. His sister's opinion doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is us." "But she called you a gold digger." "I know what she called me." Sarah reached for his hand. "And it hurts, but James responding will only make it worse. Trust me, I've dealt with people's judgments for 4 years. The best response is living well." James was quiet for a long moment, jaw clenched. Then he deleted the email without responding. "Okay," he said. "But if she contacts me again, then we'll deal with it together." He pulled her close, and Sarah felt his heart hammering against her cheek. "I hate that people treat you like this," he said quietly. "You deserve so much better." "I have better. I have you." But the email haunted Sarah for days. Not because she believed the accusations, but because it reminded her how many people saw her as less than, as broken, as someone to be pitied or suspected but never truly valued. She tried to hide her anxiety from James, tried to act normal, but he knew her too well. Thursday night after Liam was in bed, James found her in the bathroom crying silently while pretending to brush her teeth. "Sarah, I'm fine." "You're not fine. Talk to me." She set down the toothbrush with shaking hands. "What if she's right?" "What?" "Not about being a gold digger, but about using my disability. What if I am manipulating you without meaning to? What if you feel obligated to stay because leaving me would make you look like a terrible person?" James stared at her. "You cannot be serious." "I am serious. James, think about it. You met me on literally the worst night of my life. You felt sorry for me. You wanted to help. And maybe that turned into something else. But what if the foundation of this whole relationship is pity? It's not." "How do you know?" "Because I know my own heart." His voice rose with frustration. "Sarah, I don't pity you. I admire you. I respect you. I love you. None of that has anything to do with a wheelchair. But you can't separate me from the wheelchair. It's part of who I am." "Exactly. It's part of who you are. Not all of who you are. Not the reason I love you." James moved closer. "Do you think I stayed because I felt sorry for you? Do you think I asked you to move in out of obligation? Do you think I wake up every morning grateful you're here because I'm some kind of hero doing charity work? No, because that's what you're suggesting, that everything we've built is based on your limitations rather than your strengths. And Sarah, that's not just insulting to you, it's insulting to me." She blinked, startled. "What?" "You're basically saying I'm too stupid or too naive to know why I love someone. That I can't tell the difference between pity and genuine feeling. That I'm some kind of savior complex disaster who picked you because you're vulnerable." Sarah opened her mouth, closed it. "I'm not a saint," James continued. "I'm a middle-aged man who got lucky enough to meet an incredible woman. You're smart, you're funny, you're honest. You call me out when I'm being an idiot. You make Liam laugh. You make me want to be better. None of that has anything to do with a wheelchair." "But the wheelchair is always there." "So what?" He threw up his hands. "I have gray hair. Does that mean you only love me because you have a thing for older men? I'm raising my nephew? Does that mean you're using me for access to a baby? See how ridiculous that sounds?" Despite herself, Sarah almost smiled. "That's not the same." "It's exactly the same. We all have circumstances. Yours just happens to be more visible." He knelt in front of her chair. "Sarah, I love you. Not despite the wheelchair. Not because of it. Just you. All of you. And if you can't believe that, then we have a bigger problem than some bitter email from a stranger." Sarah looked at this man who kept choosing her day after day, even when she made it difficult. "I'm scared," she whispered. "Of what?" "That you'll wake up one day and realize you made a mistake. That this is harder than you thought. That you want someone easier." James took her hands. "Life with you isn't hard. Life is hard. You make it better. But, no buts. Sarah, do you love me? Yes. Do you think I'm an idiot? No. Then trust me to know my own mind. Trust that when I say I love you, I mean it. Trust that I'm here because I want to be, not because I have to be." Sarah felt tears spilling over. "I'm trying." "I know. And I'll keep reminding you as many times as you need." He kissed her hands. "But Sarah, at some point, you have to decide to believe it. To believe you're worthy of being loved. Not because you're perfect. Not because you're easy. But just because you're you." They sat in silence for a moment. Finally, Sarah said, "I'm sorry." "For what?" "For doubting you. For letting one nasty email get in my head. For making this harder than it needs to be. You're allowed to have doubts. You're allowed to be scared. Just don't shut me out." He stood, offering his hand. "Come on, let's go to bed." Sarah took his hand and let him help her transfer to the bed. They lay together in the darkness, his arm around her, her head on his chest. "James," she said quietly. "Yeah. Thank you for not giving up on me." "Never gonna happen." She smiled against his chest. "Good." 2 weeks later, Sarah got a call from her former supervisor at Mass General. "Sarah, I know you're retired, but we have a situation. Our director of patient advocacy just quit and we're desperate. Would you consider coming back on a consultant basis just 20 hours a week? You'd be advocating for patients, helping navigate complex medical situations, working with families. It's perfect for someone with your background." Sarah's heart raced. "I don't know if I—" "You'd be amazing. And Sarah, the hospital has completely renovated. Everything's accessible now. Please just think about it." She promised to consider it and hung up feeling shaken. That night she told James. "That's incredible," he said immediately. "You should do it." "I don't know if I can." "Why not?" "Because I've been out of work for 4 years. Because I don't know if I can keep up anymore. Because—" She stopped. "Because you're scared," James finished gently. "Yes." "Of what specifically?" Sarah thought about it. "Of failing. Of proving that I really am less capable now. Of people seeing me struggle and confirming every stereotype about disabled workers." "Or," James said, "you could prove that you're still one of the best advocates in Boston. That 4 years away didn't diminish your skills. That you have even more to offer because of what you've been through." "You make it sound simple." "It's not simple. It's terrifying. But Sarah, you've been so focused on taking care of Liam and me. Maybe it's time to take care of yourself too. To do something that's yours." She looked at him. "You'd be okay with it, with me working." "I'd be thrilled. You're incredible at your job. The hospital would be lucky to have you back." "But what about Liam? We'd need a nanny again." "Then we'll find a nanny, a good one this time." He squeezed her hand. "Sarah, don't make decisions based on what's convenient for me. Make decisions based on what you want." What did she want? Sarah thought about the email from Patricia, about spending 4 years feeling invisible and useless, about the part of her that missed the challenge of complex medical cases, of fighting for patients who couldn't fight for themselves. "I want to do it," she said slowly. "I'm terrified, but I want to try." James smiled. "Then call them back and say yes." Starting back at work was harder than Sarah expected. Not because of the work itself. She'd forgotten how good she was at reading medical charts, at spotting problems before they became crises, at advocating fiercely for patients who fell through the cracks. But the commute was exhausting. The accessible van broke down twice in the first month. The hospital's elevators were slow and often crowded. Her body ached from the long days in ways it hadn't when she was younger. And Liam missed her. The new nanny was competent, but not Sarah. Liam would cry when she left in the mornings, reaching for her with desperate hands. It broke her heart every single time. Maybe this was a mistake, she told James after a particularly brutal day. Maybe I should just quit. Is that what you want? I don't know what I want. She was close to tears. I love the work, but I hate being away from Liam. And I'm so tired, James. All the time. Then we adjust. You talk to your supervisor about reducing hours. We find a better nanny. We figure it out. But, Sarah, you don't have to be perfect at everything. You don't have to sacrifice yourself to prove you're capable. You're allowed to set boundaries. She looked at him, this man who kept giving her permission to be human. What did I do to deserve you? She whispered. You picked up a pacifier, he said simply. Everything else followed. They found a rhythm eventually. Sarah reduced her hours to 15 a week. They hired Mariana, a grandmother from El Salvador, who sang to Liam in Spanish and made him laugh with peekaboo games. James adjusted his schedule to work from home on Wednesdays. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. And slowly Sarah began to believe that maybe she could have both. A career and a family. Independence and support. Her own identity and a partnership. She didn't have to choose. The crisis came in November. Sarah was at work when James called, voice tight with panic. Liam's in the ER. He fell and hit his head. They're doing a CT scan. I need you. Sarah's blood went cold. I'm on my way. She made it to the hospital in record time, wheeling through familiar hallways with her heart in her throat. Found James in the pediatric ER waiting room pacing like a caged animal. What happened? She demanded. He pulled himself up on the coffee table and fell backward. Hit his head on the corner. There was so much blood, Sarah. I thought... His voice cracked. I thought I'd killed him. Sarah grabbed his hand. You didn't kill him. Babies fall. It happens. But I was watching him. I was right there. And I still couldn't... James. She made him look at her. This is not your fault. Accidents happen. A doctor emerged before James could respond. Mr. Cooper, Liam's CT scan is clear. No bleeding, no fracture. He has a mild concussion and needed 4 stitches, but he's going to be fine. The relief was almost physical. James actually swayed on his feet, and Sarah reached out to steady him. Can we see him? She asked. Of course. Follow me. Liam was in a crib in the exam room, a white bandage on his forehead, tears still wet on his cheeks. When he saw them, he started crying again and reached for Sarah. She rolled to the crib and lifted him carefully, checking him over with practiced efficiency. The stitches were neat, the bandage secure. He was okay. Mama. Liam whimpered, burying his face in her shoulder. Sarah froze. It was the first time he'd said it. She looked at James, who had tears streaming down his face. He called me, she started. I know. James moved closer, wrapped his arms around both of them. I know. They stood like that for a long moment, the 3 of them holding each other in the sterile hospital room. And Sarah felt something shift. Not just in her heart, but in her entire understanding of what family meant. This was her family, not by blood, not by plan, but by choice and love and showing up day after day. This was hers. The nurse came in to give discharge instructions. Sarah listened with professional attention, asking questions James was too shaken to think of. They needed to wake Liam every few hours tonight to check for worsening symptoms. No running or rough play for a week. Follow-up appointment in 3 days. You're very knowledgeable, the nurse said to Sarah. Are you in healthcare? I used to be. I'm actually a patient advocate here now. Just part-time. Oh, you're Sarah Mitchell. I've heard about you. You helped my friend's mother navigate that insurance nightmare last month. She said you were a lifesaver. Sarah felt warmth spread through her chest. Just doing my job. After they checked out, James drove them home in silence. Liam had fallen asleep in his car seat, exhausted from the trauma. Inside the apartment, James helped Sarah get Liam into his crib without waking him. They stood together watching him sleep, both unwilling to leave. "I was so scared," James said finally. "When I saw all that blood. When I thought I'd hurt him because I wasn't paying close enough attention. I just—" He stopped, voice breaking. Sarah took his hand. "You're a good father, James. The best. One accident doesn't change that. But what if next time? There won't be a next time. Or there will, because kids are walking disasters. But we'll handle it. Together." James looked at her. "He called you Mama." "I know. How do you feel about that?" Sarah thought about it. About this baby who'd come into her life when she least expected it. About how he'd cracked open her carefully guarded heart and made himself at home there. "Honored," she said quietly. "Terrified. Happy. All of it. You are his mother, in every way that matters. What about Michelle, your sister?" "Would be thrilled," James interrupted. "She always said the best mothers are the ones who choose it, who show up, who love fiercely. Sarah, you've been Liam's mother since the day you walked into our lives. Today he just put words to what we all already knew." Sarah felt tears building. "I love him so much. Sometimes it scares me how much." "I know. I feel the same way." James pulled her close. "About both of you." They stood in the nursery holding each other while Liam slept, and Sarah let herself feel it all. The fear from today. The love that overwhelmed her. The gratitude for this strange, unexpected family they'd built. Later that night, after they'd checked on Liam for the third time, Sarah lay in bed, unable to sleep. James was awake too. She could tell by his breathing. "Talk to me," she said. "I keep thinking about Michelle, about how she'd never get to see him grow up, how she'd never hear him call her Mama, and it feels unfair that you get to have that when she should be the one—" He stopped, voice thick. "I'm sorry. That came out wrong." Sarah turned to face him in the darkness. "You're allowed to grieve her. You're allowed to miss her. That doesn't diminish what we have." "But I feel guilty, like I'm replacing her." "You're not replacing her. You're honoring her by making sure Liam grows up loved and safe. That's what she would have wanted." James was quiet for a moment. "She would have liked you, Michelle. She always said I needed someone who'd call me on my bullshit. I definitely do that." "You do." He reached for her hand. "Sarah, I know this isn't how any of us planned our lives to go. I know it's complicated and messy and sometimes really hard. But I wouldn't change it. Any of it. Because it brought me to you." Sarah squeezed his hand in the darkness. "Even the wheelchair. Even the wheelchair, because it's part of your story. And I love your whole story beginning to end. We're not at the end yet." "No," James agreed. "We're just getting started." They fell asleep holding hands, and Sarah dreamed of the future for the first time in years. Not the future she'd planned before the accident, but a future full of possibility and love, and a little boy who called her Mama. The next morning, Sarah woke to Liam standing in his crib, bandage slightly askew, grinning at her through the baby monitor. "Mama," he called. "Mama up!" Sarah looked at James, who was already awake and watching her. "Go get our son," he said softly. "Our son." Sarah wheeled to the nursery, lifted Liam, carefully checking his eyes for the symptoms the nurse had warned about. Clear and bright, he seemed fine. "Hey, baby boy," she murmured. "How's your head?" "Owie," Liam said solemnly, pointing to his bandage. "I know. But you're so brave." Liam patted her face with one small hand. "Mama brave too." Sarah's heart cracked wide open. She carried him to the kitchen, where James was already making coffee. Liam reached for him, wanting both of them, and they passed him back and forth while making breakfast. a little family of 3 dancing around each other in the morning light. And Sarah realized something. She'd spent 4 years thinking the accident had stolen her future, had taken away her chance at the life she'd wanted. But maybe it had just cleared the path for a different future. One she never could have imagined, but that fit her better than anything she'd planned. She looked at James flipping pancakes one-handed while holding Liam. At Liam giggling as James made silly faces. At the life they'd built together from broken pieces and second chances. "I love you both," she said suddenly. James looked up, smiled. "We love you too." "No, I mean..." Sarah struggled for words. "I spent so long thinking I wasn't enough, that I couldn't have this. A partner, a child, a family. But you've given me everything I didn't even know I needed." James set down the spatula, came over with Liam still in his arms. "You gave us everything too," he said. "You gave me hope when I was drowning. You gave Liam a mother when he needed one. You gave us a family." Liam, tired of the serious conversation, grabbed Sarah's nose. "Mama funny," he announced. They laughed, and the moment passed, but the feeling remained. This was her life now, chaotic and imperfect, and sometimes really hard, but also full of more love than she'd ever thought possible. And as she watched James burn the pancakes while trying to stop Liam from putting syrup in his hair, Sarah felt something she hadn't felt in 4 years. Grateful. Not grateful for the accident, never that. But grateful for where the accident had led her. For the people it had brought into her life. For the reminder that sometimes the worst moments can lead to the most beautiful beginnings. Her phone buzzed, a text from Rebecca. "How's Liam? Is he okay?" Sarah typed back, "He's perfect. Called me Mama this morning." The phone rang immediately. "Mom, are you serious?" "Completely serious." "How do you feel?" Sarah looked at James and Liam, now both covered in syrup, and smiled. "Happy," she said. "Really, truly happy." And she meant it. The conversation with Rebecca lingered in Sarah's mind all morning, a warm glow that carried her through the chaos of syrup-covered toddler cleanup and James's sheepish apology for the burned pancakes. By afternoon, when Liam went down for his nap, Sarah found herself sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop open, staring at a blank document. James looked over from where he was working on his own computer. "What are you doing?" "I don't know yet." Sarah chewed her lip. "I've been thinking about something." "Dangerous activity." She smiled despite herself. "I'm serious. All those people at the hospital, the families I work with, they're struggling with the same things I struggled with after the accident. The isolation. The systems that aren't built for them. The feeling that they're invisible." "Okay. What if I started writing about it, not a memoir? God, nobody wants to read that. But practical advice. Real talk about navigating life with a disability. How to advocate for yourself. How to deal with the people who treat you like you're broken." James closed his laptop. "Sarah, that's brilliant." "You think so?" "I know so. You'd be incredible at that." "But who would even read it?" "Are you kidding? Do you know how many people are desperate for that kind of honest guidance? Not the inspirational poster stuff. Real practical advice from someone who's lived it." He moved closer. "Sarah, you should do this." She looked at the blank screen. "I wouldn't even know where to start." "Start with what you wish someone had told you. Start with the truth." So she did. Over the next 3 months, Sarah wrote in every spare moment, during Liam's naps, after work, late at night when James was asleep beside her and words flowed easier in the darkness. She wrote about the first year after the accident, about the rage and grief that nobody wanted to acknowledge, about physical therapists who pushed too hard and doctors who gave up too easily, about the friends who disappeared and the strangers who stared. But she also wrote about the good parts, about finding new ways to do things, about the disability community that welcomed her, about learning that independence sometimes means accepting help, about James and Liam and building a life she never expected. She called it Rolling Forward Real Talk About Life After Everything Changes. James read it first late one night when she finally worked up the courage to let him. He sat on the couch, laptop balanced on his knees, while Sarah pretended to read, but mostly watched his face. Every expression, every reaction. When he finished, his eyes were wet. "Sarah, is it terrible? Be honest." "It's perfect. It's raw and real, and exactly what people need to hear." He looked at her. "You have to publish this." "Nobody's going to want to publish." "Yes, they will. Trust me." James started pacing with the energy he got when he was excited about something. "I know someone, a literary agent. She specializes in memoirs and advocacy work. Let me send this to her." "James, I don't know. Please, just let me try." Sarah hesitated, fear and hope warring in her chest. "Okay," she said finally. "But if she hates it, she won't." James was right. The agent, Patricia Knowles, called 3 days later. "Sarah, I just finished your manuscript. I read it in one sitting. It's extraordinary." Sarah's hand shook as she held the phone. "Thank you, but..." "No buts. This is exactly what the publishing world needs right now. Authentic, practical, no bullshit guidance about disability. I want to represent you. I think we can get this published within a year." "A year? Maybe sooner if we're lucky. Can we set up a call to discuss next steps?" Sarah agreed in a daze and hung up. James was watching from the doorway, grinning like he'd won the lottery. "She wants to represent me," Sarah said, still not quite believing it. "Of course she does. You're brilliant." "I'm terrified." "Also acceptable." He crossed to her, pulled her close. "Sarah, you're about to help so many people. People who feel exactly like you felt 4 years ago. Alone and scared, and like the world moved on without them. You're going to show them they're not alone." Sarah buried her face in his chest. "What if I'm not good enough?" "You are. You're more than good enough. And I'll remind you of that every single day until you believe it." The book sold 6 months later. A major publisher offered a 2-book deal with an advance that made Sarah's head spin. Patricia was ecstatic. James opened champagne. Even Liam, now almost 2 years old, sensed something exciting was happening and ran around the apartment shrieking with joy. "This is insane," Sarah said, staring at the contract. "This can't be real." "It's real," James said. "You did this. Your words, your story, your truth. This is all you." Rebecca called, crying happy tears. "Mom, I'm so proud of you. Do you know how incredible this is?" Even Michael sent a text, "Way to go, Mom. Can't wait to read it." But the person Sarah most wanted to tell was someone who couldn't answer. That night, after everyone was asleep, Sarah wheeled out to the small balcony of their apartment. The November air was cold, the city lights spread out below like fallen stars. She thought about the woman she'd been 4 years ago, the one lying in a hospital bed, paralyzed and terrified, certain her life was over. She thought about that horrible night at the cafe, the humiliation, the certainty that no one would ever want her like this. She thought about James appearing with a crying baby, both of them disasters, and how that moment of mutual chaos had changed everything. "Thank you," she whispered to the universe, or God, or Michelle, or whoever was listening. "Thank you for not letting me give up." The sliding door opened behind her. James, wrapped in a blanket, sat down on the chair beside her. "Couldn't sleep. Too much in my head." Sarah smiled at him. "Good things, though. For once." "You deserve good things." "We both do." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city breathe below them. Finally, James said, "I want to ask you something, and I need you to know you can say no without it changing anything between us." Sarah's heart skipped. "Okay." James pulled something from his pocket, a small velvet box. Sarah stopped breathing. "I'm doing this all wrong," James said. "I should have planned something romantic. Should have gone to dinner, or done the whole elaborate proposal thing. But Sarah, I've never been good at waiting for the perfect moment. And sitting here with you after everything we've been through, this feels like the perfect moment. He opened the box. Inside was a simple gold band with 3 small diamonds. "Marry me," James said. "Not because we have to. Not because it makes anything more legitimate. But because I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I want to make this official. I want Liam to grow up knowing we chose each other completely." Sarah stared at the ring at this man proposing in the cold November air and felt every wall she'd built around her heart crumble completely. "James, you don't have to answer now. Think about it. Take your time. I just needed you to know that this is what I want. You're what I want. Forever." "Yes." James blinked. "Yes. Yes, I'll marry you." Tears streamed down Sarah's face. "I don't need to think about it. I've never been more sure of anything in my life." James's hands shook as he slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. "I love you," he said. "So much it scares me sometimes." "I love you too." Sarah pulled him close, kissed him hard. "Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I gave up on myself." "Never gonna happen." They sat on the balcony until the cold drove them inside, engaged, terrified, deliriously happy. The next morning, Liam spotted the ring immediately. "Mama Sparkly," he announced, grabbing Sarah's hand. "That's right, buddy," James said, scooping him up. "Mama and Daddy are getting married." "Married? It means we're going to be a family forever, official and everything." Liam considered this seriously. "Okay. Can I have pancakes?" Sarah and James burst out laughing. "Yes," Sarah said. "You can definitely have pancakes." Planning a wedding while managing a toddler, a job, and book edits proved to be exactly as chaotic as expected. They decided on something small. Just family and close friends. Rebecca was ecstatic and immediately appointed herself wedding planner. Michael seemed genuinely happy for his mother. Even Sarah's ex-husband sent a surprisingly gracious congratulations email. But 2 weeks before the wedding disaster struck, Sarah's publisher called with bad news. The editor who'd bought her book had left the company. The new editor wanted significant changes, restructuring, a different tone, essentially a complete rewrite. "I don't understand," Sarah said, trying not to cry on the phone. She loved it. The whole team loved it. "I know," Patricia said sympathetically. "But the new editor has a different vision. We can fight it, but it might mean losing the deal entirely." "What do you think I should do?" "Honestly, I think you should make the changes. I know it's not what you want to hear. But Sarah, this is still your story, just told in a way that might reach even more people." Sarah hung up, feeling gutted. She found James in Liam's room reading bedtime stories. "Bad news?" he asked, reading her face. She told him everything. James listened without interrupting, then said, "What do you want to do?" "I don't know. I'm so tired, James. The wedding, the book work, Liam. I feel like I'm being pulled in 1,000 directions and not doing any of it well." "Then let something go." "What?" "You don't have to do everything perfectly. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. If the book edits are too much right now, push back the timeline. If work is overwhelming, reduce your hours again. If wedding planning is stressing you out, we'll elope." He took her hand. "Sarah, I just want you. Healthy and happy. Everything else is negotiable. But the book will still be there when you're ready. And if this editor doesn't work out, we'll find another publisher. Someone who appreciates your voice without trying to change it." Sarah felt something loosen in her chest. "You'd really be okay with postponing?" "I'd be okay with anything that makes you less stressed." She looked at Liam sleeping peacefully in his crib, then back at James. "No," she said. "I'm not postponing. Not the wedding, not the book, not any of it. But I am going to stop trying to be perfect at everything." "What does that mean?" "It means I'm going to tell my editor that I'll make some changes, but not all of them. It means I'm going to ask Rebecca to handle more of the wedding planning. It means I'm going to let Mariana take Liam an extra day a week. And it means I'm going to stop feeling guilty about needing help." James smiled. "That sounds like progress." "It sounds terrifying." Welcome to growth. The wedding took place on a Saturday in early March at a small venue overlooking Boston Harbor. Sarah wore a cream-colored dress that Rebecca had found simple and elegant, with a fitted bodice and flowing skirt that draped perfectly over her chair. James wore a dark suit and cried when he saw her coming down the aisle. Liam was the ring bearer, though he mostly tried to eat the rings and had to be bribed with goldfish crackers. Rebecca served as maid of honor and gave a speech that made everyone laugh and cry. "My mom has been through more in the past 5 years than most people face in a lifetime," she said. "She lost her ability to walk, she lost friends, she lost her sense of who she was. But she never lost her strength. And watching her fall in love with James and Liam, watching her rebuild her life into something even better than before, has been the greatest privilege of my life." Michael stood up unexpectedly. "I haven't always been the best son," he said. "When Mom had her accident, I didn't know how to help. I pulled away because I was scared. But Mom never gave up on me, never stopped being there. And James, I want you to know you're getting the strongest, most stubborn, most loving woman I've ever known. Take care of her." James's voice was thick when he replied, "I plan to." The vows were simple. Sarah promised to love James in sickness and health, through chaos and calm, through burned pancakes and broken wheelchairs. James promised to see her always, not as someone who needed saving, but as someone who made him better every single day. When they kissed, Liam shouted, "Yay!" and threw goldfish crackers in the air like confetti. Everyone laughed, and Sarah felt for the first time in her life, completely whole. The reception was small and perfect. Good food, better wine, people who genuinely loved them. Sarah's former colleagues from the hospital came, and several patients she'd helped, and Mariana with her entire extended family. David surprisingly showed up, alone. He approached Sarah during a quiet moment. "You look happy," he said. "I am. I owe you an apology, for a lot of things, but especially for making you feel like you weren't enough during our marriage. You were always enough. I was just too stupid to see it." Sarah studied her ex-husband, this man she'd spent 20 years with, and felt nothing but distant fondness. "Thank you for saying that. He's good for you, James. I can see it." "He is. But David, I'm good for me too. That's what I learned. I don't need someone to complete me. I just needed someone who sees me clearly and loves me anyway." David nodded. "Well, you found him. Congratulations, Sarah, really." After he left, James appeared with 2 glasses of champagne. "Everything okay?" "More than okay." Sarah took her glass. "That was closure. Actual, healthy closure." "Good, because I was prepared to throw him out if needed." "My hero." Sarah kissed him. "Have I told you today that I love you?" "Only about 40 times, but I'll never get tired of hearing it." They danced later, James swaying with her chair the same way he had at Michael's wedding, and Sarah felt the circle of her life complete. She'd started this journey broken and alone in a hospital bed. She'd walked, or rather rolled through fire, and came out transformed. Not healed, not fixed, but whole in a different way. The book came out 6 months later, after Sarah compromised with her editor on some changes and stood firm on others. Rolling Forward became a surprise bestseller. Reviews poured in from disability advocates praising its honesty, from caregivers grateful for the practical advice, from newly disabled people who said it gave them hope. Sarah did interviews, speaking engagements, book signings at accessible venues. She talked openly about her accident, her recovery, her relationship, her life, and people listened. One woman approached her after a signing, tears streaming down her face. "My daughter was in a car accident 6 months ago. Spinal cord injury. She's convinced her life is over. She won't talk to me, won't do physical therapy, just lies in bed. I gave her your book yesterday. She read the whole thing in one night. This morning, she asked me to help her into her chair because she wanted to try going outside. Sarah's throat closed. Tell her it gets better. Not easier, but better. I will. Thank you. You have no idea what you've done for us. But Sarah did know, because she'd been that girl lying in bed convinced the world had ended, and someone reaching through the darkness with honesty and hope would have changed everything. That night she told James about the encounter. You're helping people, he said. Real people, changing lives. It's overwhelming. It's also incredible. Sarah, you took your pain and turned it into purpose. That's not something everyone can do. She looked at Liam, now 2.5, playing with blocks on the living room floor. At James, her husband, her partner, her best friend. At the life they'd built from broken pieces and second chances. I couldn't have done any of this without you, she said. Yes, you could have, but I'm grateful you didn't have to. 6 months after that, Sarah got a call that changed everything again. A film producer had read her book, wanted to option it for a movie. A movie? Sarah repeated, certain she'd heard wrong. They love your story. The romance, the disability representation, all of it. They want to meet with you next week to discuss details. Sarah hung up in shock. James, she called. He appeared from the kitchen, Liam on his hip. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, everything's insane. They want to make a movie. Of my life. Our life. James stared. Are you serious? Completely serious. He started laughing. Set Liam down and pulled Sarah into his arms. Of course they do. Because your story is incredible. We're incredible. This is crazy. This is your life now. Get used to it. The meeting with the producer went well. They wanted to stay true to Sarah's story, wanted to hire disabled actors, wanted her input on the script. Sarah agreed, still not quite believing any of it was real. Over the next year, while Sarah worked as a consultant on the film, life continued its beautiful, chaotic rhythm. Liam started preschool and informed them he wanted to be a superhero when he grew up. James made partner at his firm. Sarah's publisher asked for a second book. Rebecca had another baby, a boy, and Sarah got to be grandmother to 2. And through it all, Sarah and James built their life. Not perfect, not easy, but theirs. They fought sometimes. About money, about schedules, about whose turn it was to deal with Liam's tantrums. Sarah had bad days where her body hurt and her heart hurt, and she wanted to scream at the unfairness of it all. James had moments where the grief over losing Michelle hit him like a wave and he couldn't breathe. But they always came back to each other, always chose each other, always remembered that they were stronger together than apart. 3 years after their wedding, Sarah sat in a movie theater, watching her life play out on screen. The actress they'd hired to play her was talented, captured her mannerisms perfectly. The actor playing James was almost too handsome, but got his kindness right. The baby playing Liam was adorable chaos. Sarah watched herself, or rather the character based on her, sit alone in that cafe, humiliated and broken. Watched James appear with a crying baby. Watched their story unfold in scenes both accurate and Hollywoodized. When the lights came up, Sarah was crying. James took her hand. You okay? I'm thinking about that woman. The one sitting in the cafe that night. How lost she was. How certain she was that her life was over. And I wish I could tell her that in 3 years she'll be married to an amazing man. She'll have a son she adores. She'll be a published author and have her story told in theaters across America. I wish I could tell her it all works out. James squeezed her hand. She figured it out anyway, the hard way, but she figured it out. Sarah smiled through tears. Yeah, she did. They left the theater to find a crowd waiting. Reporters, photographers, people who'd read the book and wanted to meet her. Sarah was overwhelmed, but James was there steady and sure, helping her navigate the chaos. A young woman in a wheelchair approached crying. "I saw the movie tonight. I read your book last year. I just want to say thank you. I was in an accident 8 months ago, and I didn't think I'd ever feel normal again. But your story gave me hope." Sarah took her hand. "You're going to be okay. Not the same as before. But okay in a new way. I promise." "Did you really meet him in a cafe?" Sarah looked back at James, who was holding Liam and laughing at something the boy had said. "I really did. He was covered in coffee and had a screaming baby, and I was convinced my life was over. And somehow in that moment everything changed." "That's beautiful." "It's messy," Sarah corrected. "But yes, also beautiful." That night, after Liam was asleep and they were alone, Sarah and James sat on their balcony like they had the night he proposed. "Can you believe this is our life?" Sarah asked. "Honestly, no. Sometimes I still feel like that panicked guy with a crying baby, desperately hoping someone will help me figure it all out. I still feel like the woman in the cafe sometimes, scared and alone and convinced nobody will want me. But we're not those people anymore." "No." Sarah looked at her ring still shining after 3 years. "We're better. We're us." Sarah leaned against him, watching the city lights below, and thought about everything that had led to this moment. The accident that should have destroyed her. The night she almost gave up. The man with a baby, who appeared like an answer to a prayer. She thought about all the people her book had helped, all the lives her story had touched, all the possibilities that still stretched ahead. "James," she said quietly. "Yeah. Thank you." "For what?" "For seeing me, that first night. When everyone else saw a wheelchair, you saw me. You changed everything." James kissed the top of her head. "You changed everything, Sarah. You took a broken moment and built a life from it. That was all you." "It was us." "Yeah," James agreed. "It was us." They sat in the darkness holding each other, two people who'd found each other in the wreckage and built something beautiful. And Sarah realized that her story wasn't really about the accident, wasn't about the wheelchair or the disability or the challenges. It was about showing up, about choosing love even when it's terrifying, about finding family in unexpected places, about rolling forward even when you can't see the path ahead. It was about second chances, and third chances, and as many chances as it took to build a life worth living. "I love you," she whispered. "I love you too," James said. "Forever." And sitting there under the stars, Sarah believed him. Because forever wasn't a promise. It was a choice they made every single day, to show up, to stay, to build something beautiful from broken pieces. Together. Always together.